New York Athletics. I'm Joe Kraus. Joining me alongside once again is Rich Crozier, and it's a special edition, Rich, because of all the contests we have seen over the past week, and now we have finally made it to the sectional championships. We have 3 games to break down and recap everything that's going. But Rich had a day at school earlier. How was the school day? Was it a big day for you in the office?
Oh, good day, Joe. Great to see you. Just a normal day here at school, but not as exciting as yours. I remember my days fondly of heading down to media day, being at the KeyBank Center. Kind of jealous that I wasn't a part of it, but I gave that up when I retired. But my partner got to go down there. How was more importantly, how was your day?
It was pretty good. We went down this morning for the media day, of course. We had former Buffalo Sabre, St. Francis alumni, Patrick Coletta, as the guest speaker. He gave a really good, important note to all the players, regardless of how everything goes tomorrow, to still remember the moment and to share these few hours of going to media day, the final skate, the final practices here. But 9-year Buffalo Sabres, St. Francis product. And then we had some nice words from Rick Brooks, the Section 6 chairman for hockey, helping organize. He was the MC as well today. And then each of the coaches introduced their athletes. They brought about 10 players each, and we had a chance to talk with a lot of them and all the coaches afterwards. So it was a pretty exciting morning. We'll be sharing those interviews later on, but it's pretty fun. For my first time to be down there at media day, saw it on social media in the past few years. Like last year, of course, with your team, Rich. But it was a great time this morning.
It's just great, and hats off to the Buffalo Sabres. Again, we've mentioned it a couple times, Joe, this week. How lucky are these young men to have this opportunity to compete on the pro stage, to have a pro hockey team really roll out the red carpet for them. Tomorrow is going to be such an exciting day for all 6 of these teams. I'm excited to be covering it with Western New York Athletics and to have you as my partner, brother.
Absolutely, it's gonna be a lot of fun for me too. So let's break down. We got about a shortened show today, abbreviated here. We got 6 teams left, as Rich just said. We got starting with we have the Niagara Cup at 3 p.m. St. Joe's against St. Francis. Then at 5:30, the Division 1 championship, Orchard Park, looking for a 4th consecutive crown, taking on the Lancaster Legends, and then wrapping it up, the big one at 8 p.m. The rivalry, Williamsville North against Williamsville East. And a fun fact before we break the games down, there's 3 schools in Williamsville, as we know: Will South, Will North, Williamsville East. Williamsville South was the first one to open back in 1892. Then Williamsville North opened in 1968, and then this September will be the 50th year that Williamsville East has opened as a school. So interesting to note. Potentially, if the Flames can do it, they could start the 50-year anniversary right here a few months early. But Rich, which game do you want to break down first, and maybe kind of take along the road of each of the 3 tournaments? We saw the Niagara Cup semifinals on Monday, D1 on Tuesday, and then Division 2 on Wednesday. We saw a lot of big contests over the last few days. Maybe before we break into it, just an overall reflection, if you could, Rich, of maybe just how the last week has been, the last few days here. A lot of hockey on a big stage at Harbor Center.
Yeah, it's just been fantastic. I mean, all regular season long, Joe, we just talked about the parity in the league and just what great shape I think the league is in. These athletes have just been exceptional and been a pleasure to watch and cover them. And the playoffs have really just taken off where the regular season ended. We've seen upsets, we've seen great performances, amazing goaltending, and great goals. So if you're a hockey fan, I don't care at what level, want to see great hockey, you should make your way down that KeyBank Center tomorrow. It's been quite a rookie year for me to get involved, and I've been just so impressed with the overall outcome, experiences, performances that we've seen in the 2024-25 season. It's been great.
So let's start. Let's just go down the line here, Rich. Start with the Niagara Cup final. You mentioned the other day the cup was in your office. Did you give it back yet to the Monsignor Martin?
Yeah, it was at so when you win the cup, right? It's always interesting. Sometimes the captain will take it. Somehow it made it to my house. We had a few parties, our banquet, obviously, and then we had a ring ceremony. I guess eventually the plan is for it to be returned. So I did. I returned it yesterday. And it reminds me of like the claret jug for my golf fans out there, the British Open. I'm told that you can hold the jug for 1 year, but once your time is up with it, it needs to be returned. So I guess I'm like 100% now officially retired. Me returning the Niagara Cup means that my coaching days at St. Joe's, or at least coaching hockey, are completed. So the Niagara Cup will maybe be retained by St. Joe's. They are in the finals against St. Francis, but can spend some time at a different coach's house.
And interesting enough, there'll be two first-year head coaches for this Niagara Cup final. As we mentioned, St. Joe's first-year head coach John Cristiano, after the 4-2 win against Bishop Timon. Matteo Mancini with 20 saves in the contest, just continuing his strong campaign between the pipes for the Marauders. But the goal scoring, James Van Egmond and Josh Iuvito and Jake Economo helping Joes go out to a 3-1 lead at the end of the second period. Bishop Timon was able to cut it to 3-2. But again, St. Joe's, like we've seen all year long, Rich, it's been a nice combination. It was good to see Jackson Deacon at the ceremony this morning. He was there with his classmates and getting a chance to talk with Anderson Cornwell just about the ride that they've all had together this year, learning on the fly. John Cristiano even saying it's been a lot of learning, and now they're in the final. What have you liked overall, Rich? We've talked about this a couple times, but what's St. Joe's play? Why have they been able to get to this point in your mind? What's maybe like the one key part?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of key parts, but for me, it's definitely team speed and depth. They have lines combinations that just keep coming at you. Uh, in the games that we've covered in Division 1 and Division 2 on the public side, one of the things that I've focused on is just how much a certain coach is relying on a line, maybe two. But really, there is no off button for St. Joe's and Coach Cristiano. He has really great depth, lines 1 through 4, and it really starts with their team speed. Timon's a great team, but they could not keep up with St. Joe's. They just kept coming and coming and coming. And in my opinion, that was the big difference maker in the game. It was obvious to me. I caught the game actually through the NFHS network that St. Joe's runs. And it was obvious to me watching the game that St. Joe's was definitely going to be the victorious team. Just the way they compete and their team speed that has grown throughout the year. This team has, like many of the teams that have made the championship, has shown significant growth throughout the regular season and come into this finals tomorrow as probably the or one of the most or the hottest team in the Fed.
It really, St. Joe's has had all these different players stepping up, right? We have to talk about Ronnie Pilot, 9 goals. He had only 1 goal in the Federation for most of the year. Then he really stepped up late in the season for St. Joe's. So you had Pilot in the mix. You have Van Egmond, James Van Egmond with 8 goals along the way. A couple other big guys. Nick Rivet has been very strong on the blue line for St. Joe's. And I guess for me, like we talked about a couple weeks ago in our power rankings, I mean, Matteo Mancini is stepping up to the play. I know it's not the right analogy here, but stepping into the right role for St. Joe's in that goaltending spot. And every time we've seen him, he stood out to me the most. Of all the St. Joe's guys, I think we have a lot of strong goaltending. I think Mancini's right up there, and he's doing really well too. But St. Joe's, really just a lot of strengths as well.
Well, the side stories about this team are incredible. Starts with a first-year coach, then a goalie who's a senior making the team for the first time, stepping into that role. A sophomore captain, unheard of, goes down with a season-ending injury. Quinn McKendry goes down with the season-ending injury. Ronnie Pilot fills in on that line, scores 7 goals in 3 games. Only 4 or 5, I think it might be 5 returners from last year's state championship team. It's really a brand new team. So it's just, they have all the excuses in the world not to win tomorrow. But something tells me that, like they've done all year, they haven't used any excuses. And it's been wonderful to see. I obviously have a lot of strong feelings towards that program and that school. And I'm incredibly proud of how they have competed this year. And I'm hopeful for a great game tomorrow and a positive outcome for them.
St. Francis on the flip side, they've made it as a 4 seed. They knock off Canisius here. A big overtime finish, 4-3. Gabriel Waterman with 52 saves on 55 shots. Ryan Werner stepping up, a young guy with the hat trick. And then Liam Faddy with the game winner. Similar situation with Coach Nick Faddy in his first year. St. Francis, they've been around the past few years trying to compete, and now they're in the final. What is it about, Rich, with this Red Raiders team that's been able to punch their ticket?
Well, first thing I think about when I think of the Red Raiders is just like, they're a unique program in Western New York and in high school level. Their number 1 team doesn't play in the Fed. It's a prep school. So the fact that they can compete in the Monsignor Martin at this level year in and year out is just such a credit to their program and the type of caliber of hockey player that attends their school. They come into these playoffs as a 4 seed. They have to play in the play-in game just to get to the semifinals. They beat St. Mary's. And then the huge upset. They get up 3-1, give up 2 goals for the game to get tied to a Canisius team, Joe, that you and I have saw a couple times. Senior heavy, really good team. In fact, this is one of the most shocking upsets in the playoffs. And you would think that when Canisius tied it up 3-3 after Franny's was ahead by 2 goals, that Franny's would just be demoralized. But then for them to come back and win in overtime and to pull up the great upset, I just think it says a ton about, Coach Faddy's team, their resilience and perseverance. They haven't had a great year. They've been up and down. And, if you look at their regular season, the word that comes to mind for me is inconsistent. But yeah, here they are in a Niagara Cup championship against, one of their rivals, St. Joe's, knocking off a Canisius and, one of the biggest wins in their Federation history. It just makes for a great story for tomorrow's 3 p.m. matchup.
And a couple of big guys from St. Francis. Definitely keep an eye on Ryan Werner now with 13 goals on the season. Liam Faddy, only a sophomore, right behind him with 9 goals. A lot of sophomores on this group, only a handful of seniors with this team for the Red Raiders. And really, Waterman, 52 saves. He's only averaging under 3 goals a contest at last check. So it's going to be interesting to see who goes between the pipes. Waterman and Mancini and all the firepower. So I guess we'll just make our picks now, Rich, for this one. The Niagara Cup. We got St. Joe's, St. Francis. Who do you like in this one?
Well, if I'm St. Joe's, I just got it's the W's, right? The 3 W's. Warner. They got to keep an eye on Warner. Coming off a hat trick against Canisius, they got to shut him down. They got to get the puck past Waterman. That they take care of those 2 W's. I am going to say St. Joe's repeats with the W and is the Niagara Cup champions. But they'll have their hands full with those 2. I give St. Joe's the slight edge because of depth and experience. So shocker here. I say St. Joe's in a close one.
I think another guy to keep an eye on too for St. Francis, Troy Massey, 5 goals, 10 points. I think it's going to be a battle between the goaltenders. It wouldn't surprise me if this goes into overtime as well, maybe a double overtime. But I'm going to stick with my pick. Like I said, I had St. Joe's near the top of my rankings a couple of weeks ago. I think Matteo Mancini, he has something. Just the way that he was able to play over the course of the year. So we both have St. Joe's for the first game. Let's just keep going through the week here, Rich, with the Division One semifinal. It's going to be Orchard Park against Lancaster. Once again, the Quakers back in the same spot, looking for a fourth straight sectional crown. They defeated Lockport Niagara Falls 11-0. A shout out again to Anthony Bernardi, who you talked to, Rich. 49 saves on 60 shots in net for the Claws, but Orchard Park, just so many players that we could go through. We've talked with them a lot. Rolusky, the Ciano brothers, Tyler Buchheit. It goes just down the list. Orchard Park, are there any flaws that they have here, Rich? Is there anything that maybe you've seen in their style of play? As we have some highlights from the regular season meeting with Lancaster. Is there anything about Orchard Park that maybe they might need to clean up on here?
I think the question mark for me always remains the freshman goalie. But the kid's mature. I've interviewed him. He's been impressed. He's impressed me. He certainly plays beyond his age, and he carried himself beyond his age. But that's a lot of pressure on a ninth grader to be leading his team, for what Orchard Park hopes to be a state championship. So there are no flaws in their game. Their transition game is exceptional. They can bury the puck. They're physical. They are well coached. But again, a freshman goalie, what's his emotions going to be like in the big stage, playing on the pro ice, the Key Bank Arena? My gut tells me he's going to be just fine. But you're asking me if there's anything that might be a slight question mark. That's the only thing on their roster that is a little bit interesting.
And so far, he's been spectacular, right? We saw him a couple weeks ago against Williamsville North, in that non-league win. They just have a lot of firepower offensively and defensively. The Ciano brothers combined for 53 points. Tyler Buchheit, 17 goals. Barrett Ant said it was nice to see him get a couple goals, adding to that depth that the Quakers have had all year. But Orchard Park, they're number one for a reason. They've been at the top of the My Hockey rankings for so long this year in Division One. But knowing Orchard Park and getting to talk with head coach Daniker earlier today, he said they're just focused on right now. They're not really worried about what's ahead. So Orchard Park, but this Lancaster team though, Rich, they've been going around really, really strong the second half of the year. Of course, the overtime finish against Williamsville East that we saw a couple weeks ago, and just the players that they have too. Joey Wisniewski, Nick Monticelli, Danny Snyder, Tommy Grimm. Tommy Grimm with a big game in the semifinal on Tuesday against Sweet Home Depew North Tonawanda. The Legends, they kind of have this interesting scenario where they kind of started slow, and out of all the teams, they've been heating up at the right time. What is it about their style of play, Rich, that just made them so well here at the right time?
Yeah, I agree with you, Joe. They've shown a lot of growth throughout the year. You connect with coach, and he suggests that we're a work in progress, and they have been. You think about earlier in the season, Orchard Park beat Lancaster 8-0. So that doesn't really seem like a championship matchup. And there's one thing I'm going to guarantee: tomorrow's game is not going to be 8-0, and that's going to show the growth of that Lancaster team. You ask me for a word, the word that comes to mind is gritty. They keep coming at you. They battle. They don't back down. They don't seem intimidated. And they're the type of team that would be scary for an Orchard Park. And Orchard Park's going to need to really be in the right mindset. If they come into tomorrow and they think that the game's going to be 8-0, they might run into trouble. Like we saw them maybe take a Clarence lightly. Do you remember that, Joe? Clarence was down 3-0, and it's Orchard Park's only regular season regulation loss too. And sure enough, the Red Devils came back and won that game 5-3. And it is because Orchard Park was overconfident and they took their foot off the gas. Um, so, I would tell you that to me, as a coach, I'd be concerned. You beat a team 8-0, you're going into the championship. You've got teenage boys that might think it's going to be easy. And man, if they think that, are they mistaken? It is not going to be easy for Orchard Park. Tomorrow, I anticipate that Lancaster will give them a really big fight.
And really for Lancaster, the line that has stood out in this postseason and the line that the Legends really needed in this postseason was the Snyder Grimm Monticelli line. Those three forwards continuing to cycle the puck towards the net. And they've really stepped up. Dylan Girth as well in net. We mentioned the other day that Ryan Crone, who we saw in the Williamsville East game, not sure he's going to be able to be ready to go. He had a knee injury, but Dylan Girth has been the starter the majority of this year. He really stepped up again in the semifinal. We mentioned about Orchard Park. They're looking for their fourth sectional crown in a row. Lancaster has had some recent success in winning back in 2021, but due to COVID restrictions, they weren't able to get the full experience, which is what Coach John Bach said today to me. Really excited to have the media day for these players to celebrate. They weren't able to have that full experience a few years ago at Harbor Center due to restrictions. But Orchard Park, Lancaster, 5:30 puck drop, Division I championship. Rich, who do you have in this one?
I've got Orchard Park. Again, I expect it to be close. Certainly a lot closer than previous matchups, but OP's the real deal with their transition game. It's going to be hard for Lancaster to really sustain any momentum. Orchard Park plays the way they're capable of playing. They should win a championship tomorrow.
I'm going to pick Orchard Park as well. I think it's going to be a 4-3 scenario. I think both teams are going to get some opportunities offensively, but the Quakers with that experience, like you just said, Rich, and throughout the season, it's going to rely on again. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back to predict the Division II final. You are watching a special Western New York High School Hockey Weekly on Western New York Athletics.
Need an electrician? Empire Electric is your residential wiring specialist. New builds, service upgrades, lighting, generators, you name it, Empire does it with hundreds of 5-star reviews that speak for themselves. Call Empire Electric today for your free estimate.
Seek your next adventure. Make your next memory. Explore your next connection. What will you do next?
And welcome back to Western New York High School Hockey Weekly on Western New York Athletics. Joe Kraus, Rich Crozier, our producer, Tim Gardner with us today. Big thanks to Tim, as well as Russ Battaglia last night with the great cinematography, breaking down the big plays, including, which we'll get to in just a moment here, that goal with the instant replay for Hamburg that led to that first goal for Hamburg. But we have a big contest to wrap up the night, Rich, the Division II final, the one that everybody's been talking about, the first year of the 16-team tournament, the knockout rounds, each round. I think it's safe to say it's been a pretty big success for the section, and it's going to lead to a big rivalry with Williamsville North against Williamsville East, two longtime coaches. We mentioned about the history between the two schools, the two coaches as well. Bob Rosen against Mike Turillo. Mike Turillo once played for Bob Rosen many years ago. But, Rich, this is such, when you get a rivalry game here, and especially for a championship, the rivalry game, it just enhances another notch. Do you agree?
Yeah. to really play each other too often. So the fact that they are getting the chance and that it is in a section championship is pretty exciting. I had a little reaction there, Joe. I did not know that Coach Torillo played for Coach Rosen. I've been sharing my fun fact that I played for Coach Rosen. So, man, that Coach Rosen, I didn't know he had so many years.
We're taking a look at the highlights from that Williams Elite Hamburg win as well, Rich. The Flames with the 5-2 victory. Hamburg, they get the late response in front. But, Williams Elite in that interesting play as well, Rich. I mean, your thoughts on just how that type of sequence and how valuable was it to have instant replay now here in the postseason?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, that was the best game last night. That and the Clarence upset are the two. Interesting. Hamburg involved with both of them. Love the energy that the Bulldogs brought. Hats off to Coach McFall. They traveled well, and they gave East a real good fight. But Williams Elite, that we've talked about throughout the season is just how relentless they are with getting pucks on net. They've got great scoring, solid defense. Jacob Sexton's been amazing in that. So they've got a lot of the boxes checked. So it's been a great run for them. As far as instant replay is concerned, I just think it's great. These are huge games, and let's be honest, there's no human that's perfect. So Coach Torillo did challenge an offsides yesterday. His challenge was rejected. It was not offsides, but again, these kids have worked so hard to get to this point. The fact that the section and the state has made it mandatory for instant replay to be a part of their playoffs, I think just talks to the importance of what high school athletics has become, and I think it's a great thing. I will share with you that I instituted 2 last year in my playoff run with St. Joe's. One in the semifinal against St. Francis, where a player's helmet came off before the puck went in the net, and that goal got negated. And then in my state championship game against Monsignor Farrell that we won in overtime, I asked for a review that I thought a goal went in over the line, that they did not call a goal. They reviewed it and they said it was a goal. So I was 2-0 on my instant replay reviews last year, and it's one of the reasons why we won a state championship. So I'm incredibly grateful for instant replay being a part of the playoffs.
So Williams Elite with the first victory in that one again, 5-2 winners is Williams North as well with the 4-1 win against Kim Maurice. We're looking at the highlights now, Rich, of the Spartans win. PJ Diodati, man, he's been up there as well. The top goaltenders. I'll go 1-2. You can flip around with him and Mancini for me at least. But he was solid. And then the big goals. Eric Freeman was great as well too. 37 saves against the Will North offense. But I mean, Caleb Okulwitz, so many names down the line. The Spartans, a slower start, right? 1-3 to start the year, and then they have just been clicking on all cylinders. You never know what's going to happen, right? Of how many lines, and Bob Rosen went to all 3 and led to that result. What did you like about the Spartans' play, offense, defense, and maybe overall?
Well, they've made some adjustments, and that's a sign of a good coach. So one adjustment that I recognized yesterday is Coach Rosen got more players involved. They've never been a 4-line team. They've always had 3 lines, but Coach Rosen has relied on 2 for much of my career against him. He played 3 lines, pretty regular shift yesterday. And that was a little bit adjustment than what we saw in the regular season. So your Okuluwitzes, your Thompsons, your Pickerings, they were able to be well rested and contribute really right through the end of the game. The second thing is that he has emphasized his players going to the paint, getting into those dirty areas. Often, really talented hockey players are more than willing to just stay out on the perimeter, take those shots from the outside. But hockey goals at this level are scored inside the paint, right in the house, right in front of the goalie. That's where you score the goals. And if you're not willing to go there and pay the price, you're not going to score. And I know Bobby was frustrated with his team. He needed them to get a little bit grittier to get to that area, and they did. Benny Hansen's goal is a perfect example of that one. Rebound, finally pops it over Freeman's shoulder. I know they're working on that in practice, and it's paid off. And then finally, with North, I've been incredibly impressed with their positioning. I saw it in their quarterfinal game against Star Point. They got a 2-goal lead, and they went to this 1-2-2, which was almost impossible to get any momentum off of. They did it again to Kenmore East last night. They got themselves in some penalty trouble, which, made the game a tad closer. But if you watch that game, really, it was all North because of those things I mentioned.
And really, for me, just in the postseason, the one player that stood out the most from the Spartans has been Aiden Gracer, right? Gracer with the 2 goals yesterday, the one big one on the power play that extended Will North's lead late in the game. He scored in the quarterfinal contest as well for the Spartans. And when you can get those types of players to add into what Oki has done and what Max Thompson and Benny Hansen, all those guys have done. Christian Brodus had a great postseason as well. When you can get all those combinations and then the goaltending from Diodati, the one play, Rich, late from PJ, just unbelievable. The one-on-one opportunity from Diodati. He's done it so many times this year too. Just man, like Will North, they've had a lot of growth here, and now they're in the biggest stage for many of these players, probably the biggest ones of their life.
Well, it's the big game of the day tomorrow, and that's nothing against the other 2 semis. But the names, we can just keep going if you want. I mean, Gio has been amazing. He would be my guy that I feel has stepped up. And as you're mentioning, you're talking about like secondary scoring, you call that. North has gotten it, and they've been great. How can we not mention Sammy Welgoss?
Yep.
Sammy Welgoss means a ton to this North team. Love the way he's competing. And yeah, you're not going to get me to stop talking about Diodati, the sophomore that looks like the senior. Some of the kick saves that he has made, his reflex, just amazing. And you know what I've loved, Joe, about this year, and we can do the same for East if you want. There's plenty on that team. But just the growth that I have seen. The Williamsville North team that we saw on Black Friday was a completely different team than the Williamsville North we saw last night. 2 different teams. And that's what, a veteran coach like Bob Rosen can do. He takes these guys for 3 months, molds them, teaches them the right way to play hockey, teaches them positioning, teaches them offensive tactics, teaches them how to play in all 3 zones. And that's why, people say, oh, Bobby's lucky, he gets talent each and every year. Not necessarily true. He takes good hockey players and develops them into great hockey players. And that's why he's been so successful. And that's why tomorrow night, to me, that's in prime time. That's the one championship. If I'm a hockey fan, I'm just telling our viewers, don't miss that one. It's gonna be great.
Again, that's an 8 p.m. puck drop. Williamsville North, they have had a lot of success in the championship rounds. They have won 10 sectional titles at Division 1. Now they're bumped to Division 2. Williamsville East has won a lot as well. It's 7. It's been a few years since they've won as well. We talked about the coaches. We talked about the rivalry. So Rich, who do you have in this one? Do you have the Spartans or the Flames? Either way, it's going to be a win for Williamsville and a win for Section 6 hockey.
This one's difficult. It's really a difficult call. This is what I would call a coin flip game. And what I mean by that is flip a coin. Either team can win. It's 50-50 in my mind. But to be fair to our viewers, maybe there's a few people that are interested in my predictions out there. I got North 4-3 in overtime.
So you have North 4-3 in overtime. Like I said, DOI has been great. Sexton's been great. I'm just leaning on those Flames players a little bit, the skaters, the Stanfields, the whole entire group that we have talked about all year. So I'm going to give the edge to Williamsville East. I think I'm going to say 5-4. But I think the Flames, they just have something a little extra. Rich, we did this last week on our show as we're wrapping up here. Again, big day tomorrow starting at 3 p.m. Niagara Cup, then Division 1 championship at 5:30, Division 2 at 8. Is there any last advice if you were in the locker room that you would give to these guys? Get ready to skate. You talked about in the past, too, about Key Bank is different because you have the crowd behind you. Anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, it's a tough rink to play in. And I don't mean it in any, I'm going to just throw my coach's hat on. From an experience, you're playing on pro ice, like what could be better than that? Nothing. So, you're dressing in the away locker room, same locker room that Alex Ovechkin gets dressed in, you're getting dressed in. I mean, from that standpoint, it's amazing. What is challenging is exactly what you're mentioning, Joe. The fans are behind you, so you are staring at blue seats. I've had goaltenders share with me that they've lost pucks because of just the backdrops being difficult to pick up the black against the navy blue. The other thing, and I am sure I'll talk about it tomorrow, and I'm going to guarantee you in one of our 3 games we will see this goal, but it is the dasher. The dasher is the yellow part of the boards on the bottom. I don't know if the Sabres have a spring on it. Obviously, those are NHL regulation boards, but they're different than the boards at the North Towns or the Harbor Center. They're not like any other boards in Western New York. So when a shot comes and it misses the net, it literally springs right back out to the front. And so if a goalie is not ready for that sort of springy ricochet, he will be caught and it will go into the net. And I've seen it happen. I've been fortunate to be on the positive side of it. It's also hurt me over there. But the dasher is super, super lively. And so those are just a couple like 8-year. I shouldn't say 8-year. I've won 8. I'm trying to think how many I've lost. 1, 2,
8 and 15.
8. I won 8 in 15 years, but I didn't go to the championship every year. I think I'm 8-4. I think I've lost 4 times. I've lost games because of goals off the dasher. And it only took me, because maybe I'm not a fast learner, it only took me like 5 or 6 years to like recognize that this is something I got to talk to my goalies and my defense about. Like, hey, watch out for the dasher. But it's such a great experience to be down there. And, as we said, there's 16 teams in Division 2. There's 30 teams in the Fed. You're one of the top 6 teams in Western New York. You deserve to be there tomorrow. Enjoy every moment. Soak it in. Don't take it for granted. There's never any guarantee for next year. And for your seniors, put it all out there. There's no better feeling in the world, in my opinion, than winning your last game. I've been fortunate to be in that position. So, take care of business, guys.
An interesting note to wrap it up here, as Rick Brooks said earlier this morning, Section 6 is the only section in the state that is able to play their championships at an ice arena like Keepbank, the home of the Buffalo Sabres. So it's going to be a great time. Rich, looking forward to working with you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Same to you, Tim. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, Joe, I just want to mention real quick, because I think this is our last weekly show. Maybe not, but we're definitely coming to the end of our season. And I just, my rookie year, and yesterday we had the all-star crew, our producer Tim Gardner, Russ Battaglia, our videographer, Frank Wolf was down there, Tom Prince. It was like Western New York athletic royalty, and everybody's been just so great to me this year. This was probably supposed to be like a trying year for me. My first year not coaching high school hockey in 20 years. And yet this opportunity came about. And quite honestly, partner, you've been more than just a partner on the broadcast. You've become a friend. I've just really enjoyed my experience. Just want to mention publicly how great it's been to be a part of this company, but also, Tim, to be working with a pro like you. You've made it easy, and it's what was supposed to be kind of a trying year for me has turned out to be really exciting, and I've enjoyed it. It's a different venture, but it hasn't been what I thought it would be, kind of me missing out on something. It's actually been me looking forward to our next broadcast together. So thank you, partner. I appreciate you.
Same to you, Rich. Thanks again. This has been a lot of fun for me. My first season back on the hockey side in quite some time, and I've learned a lot about the game from you. We've had a blast doing the show, going remote in the studio, and absolutely, it's going to be a big game, big night for all of us for Section 6 hockey as well tomorrow. So once again, it'll start 3 p.m. puck drop, the Niagara Cup final, St. Joe's against St. Francis, the 3 seed against the 4 seed. Then at 5:30, Orchard Park against Lancaster. There's a big football rivalry. I think it's going to be the same intensity between the two schools on the ice. We'll wait and see. That'll be at 5:30. And then wrapping it up, the Division II final, Williamsville North against Williamsville East, the Battle of Williamsville at 8 p.m. And you can catch all of the action on NFHS Network. Subscribe today. You can catch all the action through the state championships the weekend of March 15th and 16th. We have some basketball action as well. But we're going to wrap it up for today. Big thanks to our producer, Tim. For Coach Crow, I'm Joe Kraus. Thanks for watching this special edition of Western New York High School Hockey Weekly.